Shalom, shalom, Israel. Welcome again to Watchmen of the Faith Ministries. My name is Zakar Ha. Welcome to another Shabbat teaching. Okay, in this Shabbat, what we're going to be going over, again, is the importance of the feast days. So far, I've done Pesach, which is Passover. We did the counting of Sephirat, of counting the Omer to Shavuot. And so the next one in line that we're going to be doing today is called Zakar. Z-A-K-O-R. Zakar Ha Yom Teruah. Okay, so that's the title of today's show. The title of today's show again is called Zakar, which means remember. Ha means the. Yom means day. And Teruah means, we're going to get into the definition of the word Teruah. Okay, and also what's important with Yam Teruah is that we have to understand, okay, because again, the feast days are very, very important. We have to also tie in with Yam Teruah the return of YAHUSHA, or some say YAHUSHA. So again, one more time, remember the day of Teruah, the return of YAHUSHA. Now I have a few notes here that I want to go over to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding on what's going on with the feast days. And I can't say this enough because every single show that I do, I'll always say that the feast days are very, very important. So, as I always state again, the feast days are very, very important now. And the feast days are the set apart days of Yahuwah Avinu, which means our Father. They are so important that they are key to understanding the Tanakh. All right, so let's get a Hebraic perspective on what the word Tanakh means. All right, all of this is going to be important again in giving us a better understanding of understanding the scriptures from a Hebraic perspective and not from a Greco-Roman or Christian perspective. We've done that already. So it's now time for us to graduate and make sure that we have a clear understanding on exactly what's going to be unfolding here in these absolute last days. So let's look at the word Tanakh. Spelled T-A-N-A-K. All right? So now what we're going to do, we're going to get the breakdown of this word Tanakh. All right? The T stands for Torah. All right? Torah. And we know that the Torah is the instructions. That's the best word that fits the word Torah. Torah are instructions, and it's also known as the law. All right? The word, the letter or the character N represents Nevi'im. Okay? Nevi'im. And the Nevi'im is referring to the prophets. Okay? The prophets. And the K is representing, the character actually is Ketuvim, which is the writings. the writings. All right? So again, the T is for Torah, representing instructions or law. The N is Nevi'im, which represents the prophets. And we have the K, the letter K, Ketuvim, representing or meaning the writings. Now, in order for us to get a clear understanding of the scriptures, it is very important that we understand the basics, or the basis. The basis was set at the very, very beginning. If we can't understand the basis, it's going to be very hard for us to understand the rest of the scriptures. So we have to make sure that we have a nice, strong foundation in understanding the foundation. And the foundation, again, is understanding the Torah, the law, which is the instructions, the prophets, and the writings. We have to make sure that we have that understanding before we can go on in understanding the rest of the scriptures. Now, while I'm erasing this, I'm going to be going to the book of Yeshayahu. All right, the book of Yeshayahu, the 28th chapter. I want to read verse 9. Okay, only verse 9. Because I'm a sole believer that the feast days, the Moedims of Yahuwah, because they're not the feast of the Jews. These appointments were set up by Yahuwah himself, the Father Avinu, for the children of Israel to follow. And this is going to be our stronghold, our structure in these last days here. We have to make sure that we understand, okay, these feast days. The feast days answers all questions. Everything can be explained and mapped out through understanding the Moedims. Now, the book of Yeshayahu, the 28th chapter, I'm going to read verse 9. Excuse me, verse 10. I can start at verse 9. Whom shall he teach, which is the Father, shall teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Or hearing? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. So in order to now be a more, we must understand now that this individual must be strong or have some type of understanding in the scriptures. Verse 10. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Now, this takes skill in order to be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Because we have been scattered amongst the four corners of the earth because of our disobedience and not following Torah. And so that there's some here, there's some there. Jeremiah had a little bit of it, or Yirmiyahu had a little bit of it. Daniel had some of it. Yeshayahu had some of it. All of the great prophets had some of it. So now that we're living in the last days here, our responsibility is to be able to go through the scriptures and put the whole picture together. So that's what it means now when it talks about line upon line, here a little, there a little. Okay? Because the Father did not put all of his gifts in one basket. All right? It's spread apart, and what we have to do now in these last days here, be able to understand, again, on how to put the pieces of the puzzle back together again. But in order to do that, we have to make sure that we understand the foundation. And that's the reason why the scriptures is always telling us, all right, through the prophets, to remember, which is the word Zakar, remember the days of old. And if we remember the days of old, this is going to bring us back to the foundation. All right, I just wanted to bring that out. Now, talking about the feast days now, they are very, very important because these feast days, these Moedims, they're planners for Yahuwah. And nothing is going to happen in these end times outside of the instructions that the Father gave to the nation of Israel. All right? Because this day that is fast approaching, should not overcome us as a thief in the night. And the only way that it will come to us as a thief in the night is if we don't understand what's going on in the feast days. Now, again, the key to understanding all of this is understanding the foundation. And when we understand the foundation, we can now have the opportunity to understand the Messianic scriptures, also known as the New Testament, also known as the Gospel, also known as the Besorah. Now, with understanding Hebraic roots teachings, we should all understand that Yahuwah sent his son Yahusha to fulfill the spring feast of his father, our father Avinu. And these set apart days, okay, are called Pesach. Pesach. Okay? And my argument is this, is that the Messiah fulfilled Pesach. And Pesach is known as Passover. Alright? Now, also during this time of Passover, or the spring feast, the way that a lot of us calls it, we also have another event happening, which is called Lacham. Okay? And that's spelled a lot of different ways. Okay, Lacham, but it just simply means bread, or the bread. Alright? And matzah. So the type of bread is unleavened. Okay, again, these are the spring feasts, and these are the events that the Messiah fulfilled. The Messiah also fulfilled the waving of the sheaf offering. Okay, these are very, very important. If we can't understand this, it's going to be very hard for us to understand, again, like I said, the New Testament. Okay, it's going to be very hard if we can't understand these feast days here. The Messiah also fulfilled what we call the Ha-Safarat, the Omer. That was all fulfilled. So, with this understanding, the Messiah fulfilled the spring feast, and these are the events, okay, that coincide with the spring feast, which would be Pesach, which is Passover, Lacham, which is bread, Matzah, which is unleavened bread, the waving of the sheaf offering, and Ha-Safaret, the Omer, or counting the Omer to, let me explain what that is. That is to Shavuot, or what is known as Pentecost, all right? Which happens 50 days at the counting of the Omer, of the waving of the sheaf offering. From that day, okay, you count 50 days, and within those 50 days, you should have 7 Shabbats, all right? So that is going to be very, very important in understanding the Messianic understanding of the Scripture, and understanding the redemptive role of the Messiah, and understanding that there are still 3 other events that happens in the 7th month. There's still 3 other events that happens in the 7th month, okay, that needs to be accomplished. And we're going to go into that, like I said earlier, starting in the 7th month with the event or the festival called Yam Teruah. Now, let's go to the book of Yeshayahu 61, all right, chapter 61, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 2 to give us even a better understanding on the redemptive role of the Messiah, understanding the spring feast and the fall feast. The Messiah fulfilled the spring feast, which represents his first coming, and when the Messiah fulfills the second part of it, or what's happening in the 7th month, that's going to explain to us, okay, his second coming. Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, maybe verses 1 to 2. This is a prophecy, okay, pertaining to or alluding to the Messiah. The Ruach of Elohim is upon me, because Elohim hath anointed me. This me is referring to YAHUSHA, hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. This meek here is referring to the nation of Israel. To preach good tidings unto the meek, he hath sent YAHUSHA to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim. Okay, to proclaim is to make an announcement. It is to make a shout, and we're going to get into that. To proclaim liberty to the captives. And who are the captives? The captives are keeping everything in its basic order first, because the whole world is out of sync. But keeping everything in its proper order, the captives is referring to the nation of Israel. So what the Messiah is doing, he's proclaiming liberty to the captives. And understanding now, okay, the feast days, this is done during the year of Yovel, or what we call the year of Jubilee. Just like the nation of Israel, okay, was redeemed or taken out of Egypt, all right, during the year of Jubilee, Yovel. That's when the captives are set free. So everybody knows that Israel left Egypt, okay, during the Passover. That's what the whole thing of Passover is all about. But what's also important is that it happened during the year of Jubilee. And what's going to happen in these latter days here, our departure, when the end gathering starts to happen, is going to also happen during Yovel, okay, during the year of Jubilee. That's when the captives is going to be set or let loose or set free again, and we're going to go back into our own homeland. So again, and the opening of the prisons to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahuwah. And that's very important. To proclaim the acceptable year. What year is that? That acceptable year, okay, with understanding the feast days, is the year of Yovel, the year of Jubilee. That's the acceptable year. Now, what I want to do is stop there, because what happened now is that this is a two-part understanding of the scripture here, because let's go to Luke, okay, the 4th chapter. Instead of explaining, let's just go to the scripture. Matthew, let's go to Luke, the 4th chapter. The 4th chapter, and I'm going to start at verse, let's start the 14th verse, and I'm going to read down a couple of verses here. And it states, and Yahusha returned in the power of the Ruach into Galilee, and there went out a fame of the Hamashiach throughout all the region round about. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was. Now that word custom is very, very important, because it helps us to understand that we as Israelites have a custom. All right? We have a custom, and we have a language, and we have a way about ourselves that we have to get back in tune with. So Yahusha goes into the synagogue as it was custom, okay, on the Shabbat, And this is what he did. He went into the synagogue on the Shabbat day. On the Shabbat day. So we still have to honor and acknowledge the Shabbat. The Shabbat is very, very important. Extremely important. This is what's going to set us apart from everybody else that's in the world, because the Talmud, okay, or the followers of the Messiah in the last days is going to have a mark upon them. And that mark on them will be is that they follow and observe the Shabbat. All right? The Christian church don't follow the Shabbat. The Christian church follows the first day of the week. All right? And stood up to read. So when he stood up to read, he's reading Torah. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Yeshayahu, which I just read. Okay? The prophet Yeshayahu. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written. And the place that he found where it was written was the book of Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, verses 1 through 2. Now, verse 18. Yahusha is now fulfilling what was spoken of him in the book of Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, verses 1 to 2. He's fulfilling the prophecy by saying, the Ruach of Elohim is upon me, because Elohim, Yahuwah, the Father, hath anointed Yahusha to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives. And again, like I said, the preaching of the deliverance of the captives happens during Jubilee. Jubilee. So again, in order to understand what's going on in the new so-called New Testaments or the Messianic writings, we have to make sure that we understand, okay, the foundation and understand the feast days, because the Messiah is fulfilling this. All right? Everything has been centered and geared around the feast days. All of it. Now, he has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and to the recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Verse 19, to preach the acceptable year. And again, we have to understand what is that acceptable year. And that acceptable year is the year of Jubilee, Yovel. Okay? Understanding the feast days are very important. To preach the acceptable year of Elohim. And he closed the book. Okay? And he gave it again to the minister, and sat down at the eyes of all of them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him. So what we have to find out is that it is very important now. In verse 20, it says that, and he closed the book. With the understanding that he fulfilled the spring feast. The spring feast. And then he closed the book. Now, when we go back now to the book of Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter, because the Messiah stopped here, where it says to proclaim the acceptable year of Elohim. Now, the second part of it, because the word and, A-N-D, is a conjunction. So, after the Messiah fulfills now the spring feast, he now has to fulfill the fall feast. Now, it says, and the day of vengeance of our power to comfort all that mourn. So with that understanding now is that we have now the importance of the 7th month, called the Shabbatical month, or the Sabbath month. All right? It's also called the month of Ethanim, or the month of Tishri. Okay, so that 7th month is very, very important. And this is what we're looking for now. And this is the reason why Yam Teruah is very, very important. Extremely important, okay? Now, also, Yam Teruah, okay, sets the stage for the final two Mikra. Okay, and we're going to get into the definition of the word Mikra HaKodesh. Okay, now these two final stages are called Yam I'm going to write it down over here on the board. Yom Kippur. I think it's spelled with two P's. So what I'm going to do like this, I'm going to put the other P in parentheses. Kippur. Okay, Yom Kippur. And the Yom Kippur means, or Ha Yom Kippur means the day of covering, or the day of, but the word Kippur means covering, which is actually called the Day of Atonement. Okay, the Day of Atonement. And, excuse me, this would be the second, because Yam Teruah will be the first, and then we have what we called, we have Sukkot, okay, which just simply means the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Tabernacles. All right, and that word tabernacle is very important, but I'm not going to get into that now, okay? What I basically just want to do is focus on Yam Teruah, okay? In the next class that I do, I'll go into depth about Yom Kippur, get into depth about Yom Sukkot, and the other one called after, which is the 8th day, because the Feast of Tabernacles is 7 days. And then we have Shemini Atzeret, which means the great day. All right? And again, I get into this a lot more in detail a little bit later, but what I just want to do is just show now that in the 7th month, Yam Teruah sets the stage for the final 2 events, and this is all going to be alluding to now. This has to happen in the year of Yovel. That would be the acceptable year. So I'm just going to stand off a little bit and just go over just one more time. Okay, Yom Kippur. The word Kippur means to cover, but is more associated along with understanding the feast, the Day of Atonement. And then we have Yom Sukkot, which means the Feast of Tabernacle, which is a 7-day event that happens from the 15th to the 21st. And then on the 8th day is called Shemini Atzeret. And again, there's so much going on with the feast days, and I just don't want to get ahead of myself and be all over the place. So I'm just going to slow down and make sure that everything is done in its proper order, and just deal with Yam Teruah. All right. Keep everything in its order. And also, too, which is very important, all right, with the word Zakar, which means remember. You know what? I'm not going to jump ahead. We're going to go into depth about that word Zakar also, okay? We have one definition that it means to remember. Now, Yom Teruah is the only moed or feast day of Yahuwah that happens on a renewed moon. Okay, a renewed moon. Let's go into that a little bit here. Okay, let's go to the book of Ezekiel. Okay, and a very controversial chapter and verse is Ezekiel 46. Okay, now I'm just going to read the first verse here. It says, "Thus saith Elohim, Yahuwah, okay, Adenu, our Father, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east." Okay, looking toward the east is going to be very, very important. This gate that looks toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. Okay, 6 working days. But on the Shabbat, it shall be open. Okay? The Shabbat. The Shabbat is a 7-day cycle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 day. And the 7th day was given a name called the Shabbat. So there are 6 working days, all right? and then we have the Shabbat. It should be open on the Shabbat. And, which is a conjunction, okay, in conjunction to, but separate. All right? In conjunction to, but separate, because we have another time when the door should be open. It should be open on the new moon. Now, the new moon is very, very important, because the new moon sets the stage on when we start the count. So, by tradition, okay, when you could just Google it anywhere, you know, about the how was the new moon observed. They would usually take two elders from amongst Israel, okay, and they would start their journey about 2 or 3 days prior to the expectation of the renewed moon, okay, and they will watch for the first sliver of the moon. Because my understanding now is that we're talking about the first sliver. So what happens now is that when this is done, an announcement is made. When this announcement is made, it's for the priests and everybody, but it also is a community thing where everybody has the opportunity to know when the new month is starting. So this starts the count. Now, the new moon, okay, or the renewed moon does not set the stage when the 7-day count starts. Meaning, it has nothing to do with the 8, 15, 22, 29. It has nothing to do with that. All right? So again, there are 6 working days, and then there's the Shabbat. And then we have the new moon also in the 7th month, okay, being observed as a Shabbat. Okay? It's not the weekly Shabbat, but the new moon is also in the 7th month a Shabbat. And we're going to go through that a little bit here, okay? And then when you read down in the book of Ezekiel, the 46th chapter, it tells you about the duties of the princes and the sacrifices and things like that. It gets into descriptive detail about the whole thing about what you do on the new moon and what you do on the Shabbat. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. But that east gate is very, very important. And again, the Rosh, okay, Kodesh does not set the stage where now we begin an 8, 15, 22, 29 count. We don't do that, okay? So I've already done shows on that already. So now let's go to the there's another scripture that I want to go to is let's see here, make sure I got this thing correct. 43:1, Ezekiel 43:1. Afterward he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east, and behold, the glory of, or the Shekinah of Elohim, the power of Yashra'al, came from the way of the east. From the way of the east. So we're talking about here YAHUSHA. Okay? We're talking about the HaMashiach, the Messiah. And behold, the Shekinah of Elohim, the power of Israel, came from the way of the east, and his voice was like the noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his, as they have here, glory. Now, that is very important for us to understand, okay? Because again, understanding these feast days is very, very, very important. Now, with that, a lot of people might have also heard that the so-called Jews now, they look at Yam Teruah as Rosh Hashanah, not just Rosh Kodesh, which means, the Rosh means, I'll write that down. It's spelled, I've seen it spelled a lot of different ways. R-O-S-H and R-E-S-H. But it just simply means, okay, head or beginning. Beginning. I think that's what I got. Yeah, beginning. All right? So that's just basically what that means. So, and the word Shana means year. Okay? But I found no scriptures. I'm just move over a little bit here. So I found no scriptures to support that doctrine. Okay? About the seventh month being the new year. Okay, we're going to go into that a little bit in understanding when the beginning of the year is. When does the beginning of the year start? All right, and those of us that look at the scriptures from a Hebraic perspective, this is basic 101 elementary, that the new year does not begin in January. Okay, it does not begin January the 1st. That's a no-no. It's very important that we understand the scripture and understand when the Father, okay, told us the new year should begin. And everybody knows this. This is basic. This is simply the book of Shemot, which is the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. And I'm going to read, let's see, the first and second verse, all right? And Elohim spoke unto Moshe and Aharon in the land of Mizraim, saying, This Kodesh, all right, shall be unto you the Resh. So we see the words Resh Shahana here, with the word beginning, which means Resh, and the word month means Kodesh. So this is the beginning of the year to you. It is the beginning of the month. It should be unto you the first renewed moon of the year. And the word year is Shana to you. So that's how the stage was set in the beginning for the nation of Israel. And it is very important for us to follow all of the laws, statutes, and commandments. That's going to be, okay, the identification mark, all right, that the Father is going to be looking for in these absolute days. Those of us that are upholding Torah teachings. All right? Now, another interesting title that was given to Yam Teruah was called the Unknown Day. Okay, which we'll get into a little bit later. But what I want to do next now, all right, is look into some of the reasons why normally the shofar is blown. And again, all of this has to do now with Yam Teruah. All right? Yam Teruah. Now, the shofar, okay, is blown during Yom Kippur also. All right? Also during Yom Kippur. Let's go to that. It is the book of Vayikra, which is the book of Leviticus. Let's go to chapters 25, and let's go through verse 9. It says, then shall thou cause the shofar, okay, of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. So again, the 7th month is very important. The 7th month, but it also may mention the Jubilee. This is the Jubilee sound. So this sound is made in the 7th month, the 10th day of the 7th month, at the time of the Day of Atonement. On the 10th day of the 7th month, in the Day of Atonement, shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. Now, it is also used in the case of an attack. All right? Let's go to the book of Yeshayahu. Yeshayahu, the 6th chapter. Yeshayahu, the 6th chapter. And let's go to, let's see, where would be a good place to start from? Let's try 6 and 5, all right? 6 and 5. Actually, not Yeshayahu, the book of Yeshua. Excuse me. The book of Yeshua, the 6th chapter, the 5th verse. Okay, and this Yeshua here is referring to Joshua. Now, and it shall come to pass, let's start the 4th verse, and 7 priests or 7 Kohen, because the word priest in Hebrew would be Kohen. And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day you shall compass the city 7 times. So we're talking about Jericho here, all right? I should have started at the first verse, but I just wanted to bring out the importance of the blowing of the shofar, and this is used in the case of an attack, all right? And it shall come to pass that when they shall make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down under it, and the people shall ascend up every man straight upon him. So we see now in the book of Yeshayahu that the shofar is also used for an attack. Now, let's also go to the book of Yirmiyahu, the 4th chapter, and let's read let's start at verse 19. Excuse me, 1 second. All right, Yirmiyahu, the 4th chapter, the 19th verse. Yirmiyahu was saying, my bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me. I cannot hold my peace, because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet, the alarm of war. Destruction upon destruction is cried, for the whole land is spoiled. Suddenly are my tents spoiled, and my curtains in a moment. How long shall I see the standard and hear the sound of the trumpet? Which is a question. Let's read on a little bit more. Okay, this is real interesting. For my people, which is referring to Israel, is foolish. They have not known me. Okay, and how is it that Israel don't know the Messiah? By not following the laws, statutes, and commandments, and not following Torah is an indication that we are a foolish people collectively, and that we don't know the Father. All right? And the way that the bride recognizes the groom is by following the order. But what's happening now is that the bride is being called foolish because the scriptures say that they have not known me, meaning that they're not following Torah. They are sottish children, and they have none understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do Torah, which is good, they have no knowledge. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. I'm just going to stop there because, I mean, there's a whole lot going on here. And again, I just want to stick to the whole thing about Teruah and the blowing of the trumpet, and that when the trumpet is blown is also an indication of an alarm for war. Now, blowing the trumpet is also very interesting too. Now, as I found, is that it's also good for the praise of Avinu, which is our Father, Yahuwah. All right? And let's go to that. The book of Telehim. The book of Telehim. All right? We're going to go to chapter 27. Okay, that's Telehim 27. And we're going to read verse 6. And now shall all my head be lifted up above my enemies, round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of shouting. Sacrificing of shouting, all right? So he's making a noise, because that's what the word teruah means. It means to make a noise or a blast, a joyful noise, because this is what this is referring to. So this is a joyful occasion where now we're blowing the shofar, or we're making a noise of joy unto Yahuwah the Father. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises unto Elohim. Now, let's go to another scripture. Telehim, the 89th chapter. Telehim, the 89th chapter. Let's read verses 15 to 16. Now read verse 15. Barak is the people, or blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. Okay? That sound is a shout. The joyful shout. And again, blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. What is that joyful sound? That joyful sound is the sounding of the Torah. That's that joyful sound that Yahuwah the Father is looking for. Following Torah is that joyful sound that the groom, YAHUSHA, is looking for. And this is when the Father and the Son can say, behold, these are my people, because they know the joyful sound. And again, the joyful sound is Torah. Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O Elohim, in the light of thy countenance. Walking in the light of the of Elohim's countenance is simply following the laws, statutes, and commandments. That's what that means in a nutshell. All right. In thy name shall they rejoice or give praise all the day, and in thy righteousness they shall be lifted up or exalted. All right. Now let's look at one more. The praise of the Father. Let's go to the book of Telahim. We're going to stay in the book of Telahim, actually. And we're going to go to 150. The 150th chapter. Verse 5. I'm going to read down to the 6th verse. Praise Elohim upon the loud. Okay, we can't be bashful. When these festivals are in place, we have to make a joyful noise unto Elohim. A joyful noise. We must make a blast, a shout. That is very, very important. Don't hold it back. Let it go. The way that you do at your parties, you have the amplifiers and the subwoofers and the music just blasting. All right? That's the way that we're supposed to be on our holy convocations. Don't hold back. Let the sounds explode. All right? Let it explode. This is a feast day, a set-apart day of Elohim. Sing the praises. All right? Make the shout. Praise him upon the loud cymbals. Praise him upon the high sounding cymbals. Let everything that breathe praise Elohim. Praise you, Elohim, your mighty one. All right? Now, what I also want to get into, I want to go into a little bit more in depth also about the fall feast, because the fall feast explains to us the future acts of redemption. All right? Redemption is very, very important again. Redemption. This is what we're looking for. Our forefathers have been talking about it, and here we are now in the so-called year of 2012, and we're looking for this redemption. All right? This regathering of the 12 tribes, and righteousness being bestowed again upon the four corners of the earth, with Jerusalem being the nucleus of everything. All right. Now this all begins now with Yam Teruah, and I'm going to say it again now. The future acts of redemption begins with Yam Teruah during the season or the time of Yovel. Very important. Now, let's go to Vayikra, which is the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. This sets the stage, okay, to understanding Yam Teruah. 23, Leviticus 23, verse 23, all right? I'm going to read down to the 25th verse. And Elohim spoke. All right, so there should be no doubt about anything when we see such a strong statement as that. It says, and Elohim spoke into Moshe, saying, speak into the children of Yashra'al, saying, in the seventh month, all right? Because months got its names after we left the Babylonian captivity, when we see this this name that's very big in idolatry, Tammuz, and all these other names that we have, you know, but there was originally, you know, month 1, month 2, 3, 4, all the way down, and we have, it talks about the 7th month, and there's a very important event that happens in the 7th month. I'm just going to read on. In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, of this renewed moon, shall you have a Shabbat. So, Rosh Kodesh, okay, in the 7th month is a Shabbat. A memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. All right? I read out to the 25th verse. You should do no servile work therein, but is conjunction, but you shall offer an offering made by fire to Elohim. So there were temple work done on that day. There was temple work done, but no servile work. So the ordinary work that you do, we're not supposed to do any work on that day. Now, what I found important, okay, in looking at these words here, because we can't let these words just go by, all right? What I found interesting in verse 24 is the word memorial. All right? I'm going to write that word down. The word memorial. Memorial. All right? And that word memorial is associated with the word in Hebrew, Zakar. And the word Zakar means to remember, or to bring to remembrance. All right? And the next one is blowing of trumpets. Okay? So we talk about with trumpets, we have the horn, because there is a silver horn. Okay? The horn, or the shofar, which is a ram's horn. Okay? And also, it's talked about holy convocation. Now, again, I suggest that, we all try to learn a little Hebrew. I don't want to get in the way yet. To try to learn a little Hebrew, okay? It's very important. It's a beautiful language. It's part of our culture. But at the same time, too, we have to understand now is that that pure language is going to be restored back on us, okay? Because we've gone through a whole lot of different captivities. And through each captivity, we try to graft in their way into our customs. Okay, so at least get familiar with the rehearsing and understanding that there is a pure language. Okay, so again, memorial means zakar, which means to remember. The blowing of the trumpets, we have a silver horn and a shofar, which is a ram's horn, and we have the word holy convocation. In the word holy convocation, we have Ha Kodesh. I've even seen it spelled, the Kodesh, Kodash. All right, and the word convocation is wow. The word convocation is mikra. All right, mikra. Mikra. And I also seen it spelled M-I-Q-A-R. Excuse me. Not that way. I seen it spelled M-I-Q, mikra. And sometimes without the H. Okay, I just put that in parentheses. But we get the point. So what all this means now is that the mikra is a set apart gathering. Okay? So we're talking about a gathering, we talk about a convocation, and we know that the word ha-kodesh means, or kodash, it just means set apart. So this is a set apart, okay, gathering, and the word mikra comes from the roots word quara, which means to call. All right? Which means to call. Because again, like I say in a lot of the teachings that I'm doing, because I use a lot of Hebrew words, is for us to understand that with Hebrew, words derive from other words. So if we can get that understanding, and also understanding that the word Zakar means to remember, but the word Zakar is also is used in Genesis referring to the man, Adam. Okay? So if we were to put all of this together, because the question should be, when it talks about a day of remembrance, what is it that we're actually supposed to be remembering? So if we were to look at this now from a Hebraic perspective, we're expecting the man, okay, to come to have a holy convocation to call for a reading. For a reading. All right? And so we would have to ask ourselves, a reading of what? A reading of Torah. A remembrance. So the blowing of the trumpets is a day of remembrance. And the blowing of the shofar in the 7th month, during Yam Teruah, sets the stage, okay, for a very, very important event that's going to happen on the 10th day, 9 days later, which is the Day of Atonement. So it's like a preparation period, okay, for us to let us know that we have an important event that's going to happen on the 10th, and another important event that's going to happen 4 days later on the 15th, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, which is going to last from the 15th to the 21st. And then we're going to have what we call a Shemini Atzeret, which is called the Great Day. But again, I get into it a whole lot later, okay, but I just want to stick with the Yam Teruah, the day of the blowing of the trumpets, all right? So again, one more time. In verse 24, I went over the word memorial, and the word memorial means zakar, all right? And it means to remember or to bring to remembrance. The word zakar also means man, all right? Blowing of trumpets, okay? Now, with the trumpets, we have a silver horn, and we're talking about the shofar, and we know that silver is also, it represents refining, okay? Purifying something. And then we have holy convocation, and the word holy just means ha-kodesh or ha-kodash, and the word convocation means mikra, okay? And the word mikra comes, and it means a set-apart gathering. In the set-apart gathering, there should be a reading, and the word mikra comes from the root word quara, which means to call. All right? So again, it's very important for us to understand, okay, a little Hebrew. All right? I have two teachers that's helping me. Okay, two more rays that's helping me a lot. And plus, I do a lot of my own research, you know, on my own. But again, you know, I just like to let everybody know. Again, it takes a lot of studying. okay? A lot of studying. So, if we're still here, this time next year, I should be very, very fluent with the reading and speaking of Hebrew. Because right now where I'm at, I can read it, but to have a conversation with somebody, you know, you would have to talk very, very slow to me, very slow. You know, I'm not that sharp speaking it in conversation wise, but in writing it down, I do okay. All right, I do pretty good, I think, anyway. So now, we broke down the 3 words in the book of Vayikra, explaining to us, okay, again, the words memorial, the word teruah. Let me just give that a little bit more definition of the word teruah, okay? No, I just say it out. The word teruah just means to shout or blast an alarm. It's a joy call, and we went through those scriptures already, proving everything that we're saying now. I went to Yahshua 6 and 5, which is the book of Joshua. I went to Yirmiyahu 4 and 19. I read down a little bit, and I went to Telahim 27 and 6, Telahim 89:16, and Telahim 150, the 150th chapter, verses 5 through 6. All right. Now, what I also want to bring to our attention is that the 7th month, okay, it completes the festivals. All right, just simply it completes the cycle. Now, the feast, the Moedims. Now, another key word that helps us to understand Yam Teruah better is to look at the word remembrance. All right, the word remembrance. I'm not going to write that down, but that's very, very important. Okay, because I really want to make sure that we get a clear understanding of what Yam Teruah is. All right, the word remembrance. Because again, what is it that we're remembering? All right, remember. The definition for remember is here's the word here. Remember. Remember, or Zakar. And we can just practice these Hebrew words with our families, okay? The word remember means Zakar. Zakar, remember, means to recall. So if somebody is asked to remember something, they're asked to recall it. To come to mind. To come to mind. And this is my favorite definition. Okay, my favorite definition to the word remember is to take, I think I'm spelling this word right, appropriate action. Okay? To take appropriate action. Because when we start to get into concrete and abstract words, okay, when we deal with the scriptures, all right, all of the words mean something. It has a dimensional meaning, all right. So when and I get into that a little bit later with abstract and concrete words, but this word right here this definition right here is very, very important, all right, in reference to the word remember, which is zakar, to take appropriate action. Because to recall something and not to take an appropriate action means nothing. For it to come to mind and not take an appropriate action means nothing. It's like faith without works. Just because I know it and don't do it means nothing. I have to know it, believe it, and do it. So the best definition for the word remember is to take appropriate action. Now, let's see now how that falls in line with Yahuwah, the Father, and Yahusha or Yahusha in the scriptures. Let's see if the Father and the Son are taking appropriate action regarding the feast days. All right? Let's see. Let's go to the book of Shemot, the second chapter. Shemot, the second chapter. I'm almost done. Shemot, the second chapter. Shemot, the second chapter. 24, 25, all right? And Elohim heard their groaning. Okay, so we see something happening. Israel is groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, and with Yishak, and with Yaakov. He remembered, okay, his mitzvah with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked upon the children of Yashra'al, and Elohim had respect unto them. So what's actually happened now is that when Yashra'al was in Egypt, okay, the Messiah remembered, okay, the groaning, or he heard the moaning and the groaning, but he's Zakar, okay, and he took appropriate action because of the covenant that he made with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So to take appropriate action is the best definition that I was able to find, okay, for the word remembrance. And Elohim, okay, took appropriate action. Now, let's go to the book of Vayikra, the 26th chapter. Vayikra, which is the book of Leviticus, the 26th chapter. The 26th chapter, verses 44 to 45. I said 44 to 45. Wow, there's so much meat here. Sometimes I want to start earlier. Okay, but I'm not going to hold you guys up, all right? Well, I'm going to have to hold you up this time. All right? I can't go over this right here. I'm going to read verses 40 to 45. Be patient with me. I'm almost done. Now, again, understanding abstract and concrete words. It's now, there are terms and conditions to the marriage. Okay? Yahuwah is saying this. If they shall confess, okay, in order to confess, we have to remember, go back to the foundation. I talked about the foundation early. We have to make sure that we understand the foundation. If they shall confess the iniquity of their fathers with their trespasses, they trespass against me. Now that's very important. When we pray, we should also pray for the forgiveness of our forefathers. I'm going to read it again. If they shall confess the iniquities of their fathers with their trespasses, which they trespass against me, because we're doing the same things that they're doing. Because I've also heard a lot that, you know what, oh, if I was living back during those days, you know what, I wouldn't have done those things. But if we look at this thing, all right, in detail, we're doing the same exact things that our fathers did back in the wilderness. And you know what's going to happen? Because everybody's looking for a prophecy, right? I'm going to give you a prophecy. When this weeding out process happens, and we have to literally make this departure, the same thing that happened in the wilderness is going to happen again during this next Exodus. There's going to be people groaning, people moaning, people that's used to their laptops, their iPads, their iPhones, they're used to watching TV, they're used to eating 3 or 4 meals a day. Our people have gotten so accustomed to a lot of corruptible luxuries is that it's going to be hard for them to be able to do without them now. So we are the sons and daughters of those people is what I'm saying. Okay, So again, forgiving the trespasses of our fathers and also the trespasses that we do today, because we're doing the same exact thing. Simply said, all right? Now, which are trespass against me, and they have walked contrary unto me, and that I also have walked contrary unto them. Because again, in order to expect, okay, the blessing, you have to do certain things. I mean, you just can't do the hell, whatever it is that you want to do. There are terms and conditions to the marriage. Somebody has to remember, okay, to be responsible and take the appropriate action. Somebody has to do it, and the scriptures tells us that only a remnant, okay, is going to come back and understand that. Verse 41, and that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought up unto them into the land of their enemies, if them their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity. Then will I remember, Zakar, then will I remember my covenant with Yaakov, and also my mitzvah with Yishak, and also my mitzvah with Abraham. And I will Zakar, and I will Zakar the land. I'm going to remember. And when I remember what Yahuwah is saying, once I remember, I will take the right, appropriate actions on your behalf, because of the covenant that I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right? The land also shall be left of them, and they shall enjoy her Shabbats, plural, Shabbats, while they lie desolate without them, and they shall accept the punishment of their iniquity, because they despised my judgments, and because their souls hated my statutes. And yet for all that, when they should be in the land of their enemies, all right, Israel is scattered amongst the four corners of the earth, and we must understand, all right, that we are in the land of our enemies. Israel has been scattered amongst the four corners of the earth. I will not cast them away, neither will I hate them to destroy them utterly, and to break my mitzvah or covenant with them, for I am Elohim, their sovereign one. But I will for their sakes Zakar the mitzvah of their ancestors, whom I brought forth out of the land of Mizraim in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their mighty one. I am Elohim. These are the statutes and judgments and laws which Elohim made between him and the children of Yashra'al in Mount Sinai by the hand of a mediator, okay, Moshiach. All right? So again, we see the Messiah. We see the Father. Let's start with first things first. We see the Father, okay, using the Son, okay, and he's acting. He's taking actions, okay, because he's remembering the covenant. He's remembering the covenant, all right, and he's taking appropriate action that he will not leave us here in the land of our enemies. But we must understand the basis, okay? The basic understanding of this is understanding the feast days, all right? Everything is centered around the feast days, all of it, all right? And another thing too, this is a rehearsal, okay? Even in our captivity, we have to rehearse these righteous acts, even the feast days. Because there's even a doctrine where people are saying that, listen, you know what? We can't do this and we can't do that because we're in the enemy's land. Granted, it's going to be harder. But we should get into the practice. It's a rehearsal. All right? Rehearsal. Now, let's go to the book of Hosea. The book of Hosea, the 7th chapter. The book of Hosea. Hosea, where we at? Hosea. Okay, Hosea, the seventh chapter. The seventh chapter, verse 7, 1 through 2. When I would have healed Yashra'al, then the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered. So we talk about northern kingdom here, was discovered, and the wickedness of Samaria. So this is also referring to northern kingdom. Okay, these are descriptive code words describing a people. Ephraim is representing northern kingdom, and Samaria is also representing northern kingdom. For they committed falsehood, and the thief cometh in, and the troop of robbers spoileth without. And they considered not in their hearts that Yahuwah, Zakar, are remembered all their wickedness. Now their own doings have beset them about. They are before my face. So again, when we do iniquity, okay, it's being remembered. That's the reason why repentance is so important. And that's so important about these feast days. These feast days are giving us the opportunity in the rehearsals to get it right. We can't have leaven in our lives, okay? We have to remove the leaven, because there's going to come a day when that shofar is blown in the 7th month, okay, at the new moon or the renewed moon. We have to make sure we, the bride, is ready to present ourselves as a chaste virgin to the groom. We have to do that. So repentance is very important. Rehearsing these righteous acts is very important, because in the 7th month, when that shofar is blown, the bride must be ready. Okay? She must be ready. If she's not ready, she's going to miss the appointment when she should be at a set apart place for the marriage. That's very important. Now, let's look at, okay, Telahim was the book of Psalms. Telahim 79. All right? 79, we can read verses 8 through 9. Oh, remember, not against us collectively, as a people, as a community. I did a show called Israel is a Community. But even in this late stage of the game, we don't get along as a community because of leaven. I remember what he did to me last week. I remember what she did to me last week. And we're not a people that's nurtured up in having a forgiving spirit. But we have to work on these things, and that's the reason why rehearsing is so important. All right? Or remember not against us former iniquities. And what is iniquities? Iniquity is sin. What is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. All right? Let thy tender mercies speedily prevent us, for we are brought very low. And we are. We are brought very low. And it was prophesied in the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, I think it's the 28th chapter, where it talks about that if we don't esteem, okay, Elohim, our mighty one, okay, what would happen now is that instead of the head, we would become the tail. And the tail is very low. And if we look at animals, what does the tail do? The tail drags the ground. And right now, our lives are counted as dung upon the earth. So we see now prophecies coming to pass. So again, for we are brought very low. Help, okay? Help us, O Elohim, our Yahushua, or Yahusha. Help us, Yahusha, for the Shekinah of thy name, or the glory of thy name, and deliver us and purge. Purge. Okay? That purging process is very important. And the only way this purging can begin to happen, there's something that we have to do on our parts. That is being in constant prayer and being in constant rehearsal of these feast days. And we know that the ultimate purging is going to come when Yahuwah the Father says, listen, okay then, I see that this is a faithful servant that's rehearsing these righteous acts, all right? I'll do the rest. I will pour out my Ruach HaKodesh upon him, okay then, and he would now be a clean vessel. That's very, very important, all right? And purge away our sins for thy name's sake, all right? For thy name's sake. This is not being done because of Kasada Bar and any other brother or sister. This is being done for Elohim's sake. The Father made a promise with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all right? And I don't want to go too much further with that than that, okay, then, because I want to stick with Yam Teruah. And this is about rehearsing the righteous acts. It is very important that we understand what season that we're in. Because when that trumpet is blown in the 7th month at Yam Teruah, it is very, very important that the bride is ready to meet the groom. The Messiah fulfilled the spring feast. All right? The Messiah is not coming back to die for the sins of Israel all over again. That's not going to happen. The spring feasts have been satisfied. We're looking now more so with the end gathering, the announcement of the king. I'll get into that a little bit later. The announcement of the king at Yam Teruah, the dead being raised up, and those of us that are alive, okay, will not supersede those that have died in the Messiah. I'm going to get into that, all right? Now, let's go to the book of Bereshit, okay, 8:1. Again, all of this can be explained in the feast days. 8:1. And Elohim Zakar, he remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And Elohim made a wind to pass over the Arats, and the Mayims were assuaged. Okay, so we see now Noah's in the ark. Okay, and it came to remembrance. Okay, of Yahuwah, what was going on with Noah and everybody, and the people that survived the flood, and all of the animals and things like that. So it came to Yahuwah's remembrance, and he took action. Okay, he took action. Okay, and he remembered Noah, and he calls it we know the rest of the story. Okay, now we're almost done here. Almost done. Just have a few more notes. I just want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what's going on here. Now, there are also two other prophets, okay, who spoke of important events happening at the sound of a great trumpet. That gives even more clarity to Yam Teruah. Let's go to the book of Yeshayahu, the 27th chapter, the 13th verse. Yeshayahu, the 27th chapter, the 13th verse. 27:13. 27:13. And it shall come to pass in that day. So the question is, in that day, when is that day? That day can be explained in understanding the feast. All right? In that day, that the great trumpet, okay, the great trumpet. What's important about Yam Teruah is that this is a whole day of blasting the trumpets. A whole day. Not the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, not like that. Okay? This is done the whole day. It's a great day. And this great day is also associated with, okay, Shemari at Zeret, because we know now this is this great, I get into that a little bit later because I don't want to jump ahead, all right? But this great day and this great trumpet is very, very important. Now, that great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcast in the land of Egypt, and shall worship Elohim in the set-apart mountain at Jerusalem. So we see now that this great trumpet is going to be blown. And we're also talking about now, which Christian churches don't do. They don't talk about the reunification of northern and southern kingdom. They don't talk about that. So we see now the importance of blowing this trumpet. We're talking about also a regathering. A regathering of northern and southern kingdom. The biological seed of Israel still exists. All right? We're not throwing away that there's a literal biological seed of Israel. All right? But we also have to understand now there's also a thing called the ingathering. And that's the whole story behind Ruth. Okay, and I get into that a little bit later. But again, I don't want to jump the boat here, okay? You got to leave some for the strangers. You can't glean the fields. Okay? And this takes nothing away from the bride, Israel. Okay? We have to make sure that we understand this. Okay? All right? The groom has his bride. Okay? But the bride has a responsibility. There's going to be other women coming. All right? I'm going to say it again. There will be other women coming. All right? And that's wrong with a lot of brothers that's out there that's teaching. They're believing that this is only for the nation of Israel. But the scriptures say otherwise. Okay? There will be others coming into the fold. And this is also manifested in our personal relationships with our wives, where some of them can't even understand, some, I say not all, some of them, they can't even understand that there are going to be others coming in also. So this is about inclusion, all right? This is about Israel becoming a community. This was never about leaving anybody out. Never. This was about Israel being that light for the other nations. This thing was all about, all right? We are supposed to be the light of the world, okay? Now, let's go to also the book of Yoel. The book of Yoel, the second chapter. The book of Yoel. The second chapter, I'm going to read verses 1 through 2. Blow you the shofar in Zion, and sound an alarm in my set-apart mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Elohim cometh. So again, when it says for the day, all right, were we left without clues to know when this day is? When this day might come? My argument is that we were left with clues letting us know when this day is going to happen. The exact day, time, and hour, no man knows. But what season or what part of the feast this is supposed to happen in, we are given, okay, instructions on when this is supposed to happen. This day is not supposed to overcome us that understand scriptures as a thief in the night. All right? To those who have blinded who have closed their eyes and closed their ears, it's going to come as a thief in the night for them, but not for us. All right? But again, look at these words. All right? When it says, blow the shofar, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of Elohim cometh. So the day of Elohim is going to come at the blowing of a shofar. A great shofar. It's going to make a big noise. A great noise. It's going to make a blast. A blast. And this is going to happen at Yam Teruah. Yam Teruah. Elohim cometh, for it is near at hand. It's going to be a day of darkness and of of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, and a great people, and a strong. There hath not been ever, the light never shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So we see now, a regathering of northern and southern kingdom, all right, in the 7th month. We also see the coming of the Messiah. We also see the Messiah taking vengeance on all those that oppressed the righteous of Israel. And this is all being done because of the covenant that the Father made with our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, just like I brought out, I don't want nobody to misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that every time you see a shofar being blown, that is making mention of Yam Teruah. Okay, I'm not saying that because I made mention now, okay, I just want to make this thing clear. That I made mention that blowing of the shofar is for is made for an alarm, for war, and also for the praises of Avinu, our Father, Yahuwah. All right? I just want to make sure. Keep everything in its proper context here. Now, what I also want to do is go to the book of Zechariah. Zechariah Yahu. All right? The 9th chapter. The 9th chapter, excuse me. The 9th chapter. Zechariah, the 9th chapter. I'm going to read verses 9 through 15. 9 through 15. Rejoice greatly, O daughters of Zion. Shout. Make a blast. Okay? Make a blast. You're talking about blowing a shofar. O daughters of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He's coming. He is just and having YAHUSHA. Yah's salvation. Yahuwah's salvation. YAHUSHA. That's what that word salvation means now. He's coming lowly and riding upon an ass and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off. And he shall speak shalom unto the heathen. And his dominion shall be from sea, and dominion means it's radah. Okay, radah. And his radah shall be from sea to sea, and from river even to the ends of the Arats. As for thee also, by the blood of the covenant, by the blood of the covenant, okay, and we'll say it again, by the blood of the covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners. I have sent forth, or I have redeemed them out of the prison. I have redeemed these prisoners out of the pit. The pit is representing the nations of the world, and this is going to happen during Yovel, the year of Jubilee. Okay, this is the redemption part here now, wherein there was no water. So there's no water here. The Messiah is that living water. This is what the Messiah was talking about when he spoke about, he was speaking to the Samaritan woman who was of northern kingdom, okay? He was speaking to this woman, I am that well of water, or this living water. But here in the land of our enemies, there is no water. There is no Torah teaching, all right? Turn ye to the stronghold. And one more thing too now. Again, when I say that Samaria is representing Northern Kingdom, I am not excluding the other nations, all right? I'm not doing that. But what I'm trying to do is keep everything in its proper context. If we can understand that first, all right? There first needs to be an understanding, okay, that Israel still exists, okay? We have to make sure that that's understood. Verse 11. Or did I read 11? I already read 11. Verse 12. Turn ye to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Turn ye to the stronghold. We should know what the stronghold is. That's self-explanatory. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto thee. When I have bent Judah for me, fill the bow with Ephraim, and raise up the sons of Zion against thy sons, O Greece. And we all know who Greece is. We should know who that is. All right. And make thee as the sword of a mighty man. And Elohim shall be seen over them. over them. All right, we're talking about Israel. And his arrow shall go forth as the lightning, and Elohim shall blow the trumpet. And Elohim shall blow the trumpet. All right, and shall go with whirlwinds of the south. So we see this miraculous event that's going to happen in the 7th month. The 7th month. The Sabbath month. The Shabbatical month. The month of rest. All right? Verse 15. And Elohim of hosts shall defend them, and they shall devour and subdue with sling stones, and they shall drink and make a noise, make a shout, make a noise as through wine, as if they were drinking wine. Okay, and they shall be filled like bowls, and as the corners of the altar. All right. Now, let's also now understand that the Yam Teruah, the day of the blowing of the trumpets, explains to us the returning of YAHUSHA. Let's go to some scriptures to prove that. All right, the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter. Let's go to verse 30 and 31. The reason why this is taking a little bit longer, I just want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on here. All right. And this whole thing with ingathering, you know, again, I'm going to get into that. That is so important when we begin to understand ingathering, all right? But again, I'm not going to jump ahead. I'm going to do everything in order here, all right? We're talking about Yam Teruah. Verse 30. And then shall appear. Let's read that properly, all right? At that time, the sign. It has in the King James Version, and then shall appear. I'm not adding to what's written. I'm giving a better explanation, okay? Because we all understand the Deuteronomy or the Devarim 4, I think it's 4 and 2, and the Revelation 22, 18 and 19, where you're not supposed to add or take away from Torah, all right? And that's not what I'm doing. I'm just bringing up a better understanding. It says, at that time, the sign of the Son of Man in Shamayim. So again, we have to ask ourselves, okay, what time is that when we're going to see the sign of the Son of Man? What time is that? Is there anything, all right, in the Moedims that explains to us when this time is? And I'm saying that it happens during the 7th month, beginning at Yam Teruah. All right? And then shall all the nations of the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of Shamayim with power and great glory. And he, which is YAHUSHA, shall send his messengers, or Elohim shall send his messengers with a great sound. And again, when we see words like a great sound or a great trumpet, we should make sure that we understand exactly what the verse is actually saying. Because it's saying a great sound of a trumpet. And when we look at the feast days, you ask yourself, when is the great sound of a shofar being made? Check out the history. Go back to the days of old, understand the foundation, and find out when was that great sound made. When was the shofar blown all day? All day. It was made during Yam Teruah. All right? A great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the Shamayims to the other. All right? Because there has to be an ingathering. All right? The earth or the world is the field. Okay? We have seasons. All right? There's a gathering during the barley season, and the barley season happens during Passover. There's another season that happens 50 days later. There's a wheat harvest. All right? After the barley and the wheat, we have one more season. And that season is called the ingathering. Okay? I keep going too far off, okay? But it's just, I'm trying to break it up because I don't want to do a 4-hour show, okay? I don't want to do that. I'm already running, what is it, an hour and 40 minutes, okay? I'm trying to speed this up here a little bit. Let's also look at Shaul's understanding on the second coming of the Messiah. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians. 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, 16 through 17. For Elohim himself shall descend from heaven with a trumpet, a noise, a teruah, a blast, a shout, all right, an alarm. For Elohim himself shall descend from Shamaim with a teruah, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Yahuwah. And the dead in YAHUSHA shall rise first. So we see now, this note, this tone, that this shofar is going to make, all right, is going to be a note or a sound that we're unfamiliar with, but it's going to be so strong that it's going to awake the very dead. All right? Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Elohim in the air. So shall we ever be with Elohim. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. So we should be comforting one another with these words in understanding the plan of the Father. So the book of Vayikra, the 23rd chapter, is very important because it's the planner. Everything is going to happen within inside of that note there. Everything. All right? Let's go to 1 Corinthians. Let's see what else Shaul has to say about this. 1 Corinthians, we all know this scripture. 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, 51. 51, 52. There's so much, but I'm just going to stick with 51, 52, all right? Behold, I show you a mystery, all right? So we have to understand what is the mystery, okay? So there's the literal meaning of the scripture, and then there's what we call the side level of understanding the scripture. Behold, I show you a mystery. So he's going to reveal this mystery here. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last feast. Okay, it says trumpet, but when is the last trumpet blown? It's blown in the 7th month, at the last trump. This is the mystery. It's going to be blasted it's going to be blasted in the 7th month. All right, let me read it again. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. The last trump happens in the 7th month. The Messiah fulfilled the spring feast. We're looking now for the second coming of the Messiah, okay, when he fulfills the fall feast. And we're talking about Yam Teruah setting the precedence for everything else to happen. All right? So again, in a moment of the twinkling of an eye, at the last shout, the last blast, for the shout shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. All right? We go to the book of Daniel. Book of Daniel. I know this is running long. The book of Daniel, Daniel Allah, Daniel Yahu, Daniel, the 12th chapter, verses 1 through 3. And at that time shall Michael stand up, that great prince that standeth for the children of thy people, and there should be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. We're talking about all of this beginning now in the 7th month, okay? The 7th month. As never was since there was a nation, even to that same time, even at that time, they shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. When is that going to happen? During Yam Teruah, okay? Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise, or they that be teachers, shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Okay? And we also talked about, okay, Yam Teruah as being called the unknown day. All right? What I just found about Yam Teruah being called the unknown day is that the new moon is calculated by, or is observed by observation and calculation. But I like the observation, that that's the defining factor. Okay? So now, what you have now is that in order to know when the new moon is to be sighted, you have to be on guard. You have to always be watching. So it's like it's unknown because you have to always stay on guard to watch it. And this is how these feast days are. And this is how the Messiah tells us about coming as a thief in the night. He's not going to come as a thief in the night to us. It should not be unknown to us because we're going to keep watching and praying. This is what we're going to do. So when we see that it's called also under the title Unknown Day, it just means that we have to stand on guard because the way that Yam Teruah is observed is that we have to make sure we understand when the new moon is sighted. And that is only done by calculation, but more definite with observation. So what we have to do is to make sure that we're in constant watch so that it won't be an unknown day for us. All right? That's all what that means. And in final, okay, the importance of the Moedim. I'm going to leave off with this right here. All right? 1 Thessalonians, we're going to close it up with this here. 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter. I'm just going to, you can read down, I'm just going to read like 1 or 3 verses, okay? And everybody else, you know, just take the time whenever you have the opportunity to read the whole chapter. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. What does that mean? What is Shaul saying when he's talking about the times and the seasons, brethren? You have no need that I write unto you. Again, Israel, the basis to all of this is making sure that we understand, okay? We have to understand the feast days. We have to understand the appointments. We should not be in these last days not understanding what's going on when everything is going to be based and centered around understanding the feast days. So even Shaul is trying to explain, but of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of Elohim so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they should not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should not overtake you as a thief. For you are the children of the light and the children of the day. We are not children of the night nor of the darkness. And you can just continue to read on, okay, with the full explanation of what's going on here in this chapter, 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter. But, again, what we have to do as Israelites is to make sure that there's continuous oil in our lamps. We have to do that. We have to try our hardest to make sure that we stay on track with following the laws, statutes, and commandments. It is a must. It is a necessity. Because what's going to happen now is that when that great day comes, like I'm always saying, at the blowing of this shofar, when we put on our robes, our gowns, we have to make sure that there are no blemishes in our garments. All right? And with that, Yashra'al, I'm going to say shalom, 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 and I'll see you the next time when we do the next festival called Yom Teruah. I pray that this lesson has been a blessing and that you were able to pick up some understanding with this. And if there's any problems or anything that that needs to be expounded upon, leave me a message and I get back to you as quick as possible. And with that, again, I say Shabbat Shalom.